Hey team, this is George. Can you believe that we are in week 4? It does not seem possible that we are halfway there already. I don't know how that happened, but I hope you've been enjoying the process, because in design it is a process, and that's kind of how we learn. We learn to do things better throughout the process. And the more we do it, the better we get at it, simply because there's so many things that get thrown at us. So this is a great opportunity to kind of pause and dive into a project where we're building it so we can experience all those things that are being thrown at us, because they come fast and furious in the design process. So here, if you've already jumped in and found those, or were wondering why they weren't linked, these two Merrill documents are now linked. So feel free to jump back in and click those if you were looking for them, or if you haven't been there yet, then they've been linked all the time. First off, we are going to be talking about visual design. Um, uh, our whole discussion is going to be on visual design. These are some excellent videos right here that talk about visual design, and we're going to be sharing secrets. Now, think of visual design from this perspective. What makes you want to stay on a website? What makes you want to participate in a class that you may have taken online? What are some of those visual cues, or I almost said visiting cues? What are some of those visual cues that make you want to be a part of a learning object or something like that? So, and think of your audience, and think how of all this stuff here that you're going to be reading, watching, and learning from and practicing with this week, how is that going to affect your audience? So we're going to be talking about it, even accessibility too, because that has a part of our visual cues as well. So think from that perspective. What makes me want to stay, and who's my audience, and what would make them more engaged? What would make them want to stay there longer as well? We've all had good and bad experiences on websites or learning modules that we can share, that we can learn from as well, because the visual piece is so important, because I don't care how good your content is, if it's visually unappealing, people are going to make a judgment about the content that you have prior to even seeing the content. So you have to overcome that first hurdle, which would be their thinking that the content's not going to be any good because of the way things are put together. And if you're building something for a customer, the first thing that they see is the visual cues in your what you've built. So when they see those visual cues, are they going to be drawn in and want more, or are they going to be kind of taken aback and say, "Hey, this looks kind of bad"? So you need to know what their expectations are, so your client expectation and your audience's expectation as well, and then put them together. So think from that perspective, because it really doesn't matter what we personally feel. We need to match their expectations. And then if we have a way to meet those expectations in a new way, feel free to try it, because that's how we um, grow. Steve Jobs' famous statement was, people don't know what they want until we build it for them, until we create it. So in other words, we only know what's in our schema, so we do have our expectations. So if you know what their expectations are, then you can exceed them. Feel free to give it a go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. We've all had those wonderful opportunities where we thought something was great and it didn't work. This is a perfect opportunity to try things like that, and because you'll get feedback from your client as well. So feel free to make a few mistakes here and try some things out. Let's see how that goes. And let's look at our assignment. I thought I clicked onto our assignment. Nope, there it is. So in our assignment, we already have the analysis, storyboard, and all that. We've got a background analysis, objectives, wireframe, and now we're going to be building a site directory map. Now let's take a look at our site directory map, and why are these so important? They're important for a number of reasons. And this map that we have here is very linear. You can see you have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to follow it through. And that's absolutely fine because they're building from one to another until we get to lesson closure. This is using the Glyphy tool that is in our course. Now, many of us, I'm just going to say LS for lesson start, might have more of a bubbled approach where people get to choose. So then you would have places for everybody to choose. And then some may even go further where they can choose their pathway again. And then we'll call these A, B, and then C. And then they have to take a linear path to whatever that may be, or maybe it's just a single path. So just make this an accurate representation of how I'm going to experience, or how any learner is going to experience your module that you're building. It doesn't necessarily have to be linear. Does it mean that linear learning like this is not effective? Absolutely not. There's different reasons to have it linear. Linear is when you want to build on one topic on top of another. A lot of manufacturing training is built this way. So before we can actually drill a hole, we have to know how to pick out the tools, pick out the materials, and do all that kind of stuff. How to hold a drill motor, how to do all sorts of different things. Then we finally get to locating the hole and drilling the hole. Excuse my voice. Had a great soccer session this weekend. So fantastic time watching my kids play soccer. So my voice is gone. So think about it from that perspective. So we're going to be, that's going to be the part for our project today. Or this week, we're going to be putting in the flow chart, for lack of a better term, but it's going to be how people are going to experience, how they're going to go through. Now, you don't necessarily have to, and get some of this out of the way, have to say topic 5, absorb, topic 5, intro. You can absolutely name the topics. This is just there because it's a generic help, if you will, generic example. I always will say, name the activity. So this one might be selecting tools. So intro, topic, how to select the tools, or things like that. And then I'll put do absorb in parentheses. That's absolutely the way that I like to do it, because it brings me closer to the content, especially sometimes if I'm doing content that I'm not all that familiar with. So somebody else is a subject matter expert. It helps me jump in and be able to talk to them better. So when I use names and things like that, because if I'm building a course on how to drill precision holes, the SME that's helping me out does not care about do, absorb, connect. So I want to be in a language that facilitates our conversation better. Do, absorb, connect are absolutely important, but that's from our end that's important for. So I do this so everybody understands how we're going through it. That's just my perspective on it. You may have a different perspective, and that is absolutely okay. You all are emerging experts in this field as well. So as we march through this, we're all going to grow from it. So just think from the perspective of how they're going to experience here. And this is an experience, so this does match up with a visual experience as well. So we're looking through more of our feeling experiences and visual experiences for the project this week. And I look forward to our discussion. So let's have a fantastic week.